ND filters is something that I pretty much talk about with any new piece of camera gear, because they just allow you to get the best quality footage while shooting in manual settings. So the ones that I'm going to be using today are from Freewell, and they're for the DJI Action 2. And I just want to show you a couple of scenarios where you'd want to actually use ND filters. And the ones from Freewell that I have at the moment, so you can get individual NDs and a circular polarizer, and you can also get the NDs with the polarizer integrated, which is awesome, because if you want to use an ND filter and a polarizing filter at the same time, then these filters from these Action 2 filters from Freewell allow you to do that. So I'm going to show you a couple of scenarios that you'd use the ND filters for and the circular polarizers for, but in a later video I'll talk about circular polarizers in more detail as well. So I know the term cinematic footage gets thrown around quite a lot, but having ND filters does allow you to get that kind of cinematic look to your footage where you're using the 180-degree shutter rule. And if you don't know what that is, I've done a video about that, so do check it out. I'll put a link in the description. But essentially what you want to do is film your footage with the shutter speed at double your frame rate. So if you're shooting in 24 or 25 FPS, then your shutter speed is going to be 1/50th of a second. If you're shooting at 60 FPS, then your shutter speed is going to be 120th of a second. So the reason that you want to use the 180-degree shutter rule is so that you can get natural looking motion blur. But if you try to do this without using an ND filter and using manual settings with your camera, then your footage is just going to be really overexposed. So this is why you need ND filters. But one of the things that you will need if you're going to shoot with ND filters is a gimbal. So the Action 2 uses digital stabilization. So if you're shooting with slower shutter speeds, then the stabilization just doesn't really work, so you'd have to switch it off so that your footage didn't look really janky and really rubbish. But then if you turn it off and you're walking, then your footage is just going to look really wobbly anyway. So having a gimbal whilst using ND filters is really necessary. Another reason why ND filters are great are because if you want to do a time lapse, then you can really drag the shutter. And what I mean by that is having motion blur in your time lapses. I am so much a fan of having blur in time lapses because it helps to show that passing of time. Whereas if you have a time lapse which is kind of choppy, where there's no motion blur, I don't think it looks quite as good as something which has that motion blur in it. So using ND filters to just slow down the shutter, have the shutter open longer, whilst also being able to correctly expose the image because you need to shoot in manual, is really useful. So another scenario where you might want to use ND filters is if you want to shoot long exposure photography. So if you want to get like a really nice streaky sky or soft silky water, then you want to use an ND filter so that you can open up the shutter for longer without the image becoming completely overexposed. And there's one particular ND filter that you'd want to use, and for the Action 2 it's the ND 1000. So that just allows you to shoot for like 10, 20, 30 seconds depending on how you set up your manual exposure. So I've taken a couple of photos, I've shot with 10 seconds, 20 seconds and 30 seconds, just so that you can see the difference in the motion in the sky and the water. And one of the things that would be really useful, which I don't know how you do it with a little action camera, and it's probably asking too much anyway, is you'll notice that the sky, because it's so much lighter than the foreground, or the landscape rather, it gets blown out a lot quicker than the landscape does. Or if you want to kind of expose for the sky, then your landscape is going to be quite dark. So one of the things that you could do is do a 2 exposure image. So you could expose for the sky and then expose for the landscape, and then combine the 2 images later on in post, which is something that I will try with the 2 images that I took. So yeah, ND 1000 for long exposure photos, and then just set the shutter speed to be a certain amount of seconds based on how much motion you want, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So I've dropped a link in the description to the filters. You can get them from Amazon and they're a really good price. You can get them individually or you can get them as packs. The packs are great because you've basically just got everything you need, and it also makes it more cost effective. But yeah, I hope you found this video useful. If you did, do give it a like, drop any comments in the comments below, and see you on the next video. Does anyone else get pure satisfaction from just squelching in mud? Or is that just me?